Episode 21, Driveline Research and Drinks podcast, recorded on July 5th, one day after July 4th, for anybody who's very bad at holidays. This is Alex Caravan, co-swag manager of Baseball Analytics, drinking a Sky Kraken, probably one of Brady's top 5 most common beer purchases from Safeway.
Drinking Brady's beer again?
I think it's got to be higher than that.
I mean, I wouldn't say. I mean, homie crush on mine. Hey, so
homie, who? Me?
Yeah,
I had 2 of the 6.
Damn. Anyways, what are you guys drinking?
Kyle Lindley, R&D engineer, Driveline Baseball. Don't listen to Anthony if he tells you he's the primary co-host of the podcast. I'm drinking a Fremont IPA as well.
Yeah, we're gonna clip that.
Fremont Lodge.
We're gonna clip that 10-second portion out of there. I'm
another one of Brady's top 5 purchases. The Fremont.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I'm Anthony Brady, head biomechanist, Driveline Baseball, primary host of the R&D podcast, Research and Drinks, episode 21. I'm drinking a Sky Kraken, Fremont, Hazy Pale Ale.
Wait, did you just get a new watch?
What?
Did you just get a new watch?
I think I had it on last episode.
Is it new though?
Yeah.
God, I have a sharp eye, brother. That is nice.
You got sharp eyes, dude. You don't have a sharp eye.
I actually do only have one sharp eye, but the other one it's like almost blind.
Damn, yo, Brady, did you get a cut? Did you get the whole Arizona revenue, man? You showed up with a nice car, 3-year lease. You got a nice watch. How much money you get from there?
Get commission from Arizona.
So much out of this.
What do you mean? Why do you need to cut that, dude?
Maybe.
Oh, you did. I mean, you did get. That's a fucking. That's the guiltiest thing I've ever seen in my life.
No, I mean, if you guys really want to know, I got the watch for myself as a birthday present because I didn't really get anything else. I'm not gonna lie.
Wow. Dude, I'm not gonna send you anything. I'm not gonna send you anything across Arizona lines, dude.
I'm just saying. It's whatever. It's whatever. You know, I got myself a gift. It's cool.
Well, I'm glad I waited because I was gonna get you a fresh new lease on a car, and now you went and got yourself a nice car.
Sure.
Yeah, saved Caravan some money. He told me he was gonna get you a watch too.
I'm sure.
And for any viewers who don't know too much about Brady's personal life, he just got a nice, 500 series Beamer.
Okay. All right. What are we talking about today?
We can answer some questions about that one of our viewers had last week about the podcast on Twitter. Anthony is getting a new car. He got a new car.
Oh, yeah.
I am currently not training for a marathon because my calf is still messed up.
Caravan. I did get a new car to replace the Subaru RIP.
And those are questions from Luisa Gacci, who has a very impressive deadlift, 365 on the trap bar, I think, for 4 reps. And she said she did it while I was trying to think of something else that's very impressive, off a 25-inch deficit, I think.
What was the question about you?
Oh, what's going to happen to C-War?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. That question's still TBD. All right, let's get things going. So Brady, you want to pop in and get?
That's a good idea.
You want to pop in and get give us a down low on the Arizona ops and what we're doing with the new gym opening.
Yeah. I mean, my main update is that I am back in Washington, back home. 2 days of driving back here. Arizona governor, literally the day after we recorded that podcast. Oh wait, no, we didn't record it on Sunday. Monday of last week, Governor Ducey shut down gyms for 30 days, which included us. So we had to pack up and leave.
What's the plan? We still have a lease down there for a bit, right? Is there any chance we end up training athletes down there again?
No, it was all temporary. We could go back potentially in August.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, we could. It's just tough to tell because a lot of that's out of our control with what the governor does. I mean, he even in the language of shutting down the gyms, he said that they'll like reevaluate at the end of this month. I think the date is like July 27th, but I mean, the new gym opens up tomorrow, right? So just pushing everyone back here as much as we can. Most of the athletes down there are coming up here to Washington. Check out the new facility, which mocaps start tomorrow there.
So you guys are you guys both going in tomorrow?
No, I can't. I'm quarantining for at least another 5 days.
Just your boy tomorrow.
Arizona. Yeah,
Joe. I think Joe might be coming in the second half. But we have to go one. We have to go one at a time, anyways.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. If there's one mocap person at a time or one biomech person at a time.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna. Joe and I talked about doing like half days going forward when we have the full staff, because I think, but Joe's gone tomorrow, so I think I'll probably do most of tomorrow, and then we'll just like I'll do this morning session, and then he'll do the after lunch session, and then we'll like probably keep doing that for. But we only have 3 full days too. Yeah. Thursday and Friday are slower. We don't have a full 20 assessments, and I don't imagine that we'll have 20 assessments going forward after this week either. So,
but that would be tight if we did.
It would be tight. It would be very tight.
Yeah. But we got quite a few things ramping up. Back in Washington, facility is only allowed to operate at 30% capacity, which sucks, but still gonna be pretty packed. Pretty cool to see people training and working out in there.
It looks amazing. It looks absolutely amazing. All the cages up.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to check it out in 2021.
Yeah. So it'll be good. I haven't seen the new lab or anything, but.
Just a mobile lab. We just have everything on tripods, and then the cage still has to get extended. So we're just throwing into it from the open side of it again, like we were in 4.3.
Nice. What are plans from a like future lab setup? Like talking force plates, more biomechanical labs, the high performance labs. So do you guys want to do a quick overview of that for like listeners?
Yeah, we can talk about some of the new stuff. The R&D lab, actually live ABs is going to primarily go down in there, which is pretty exciting.
In the R&D like end.
Yeah, we'll have force plates in the batter's box, force plates on the mound. Obviously, have the mocap lab. Ideally, mounts everywhere for cameras like. Yep. Edgar's and slow-mo, top view, side view, behind, same on the hitting side.
For those who aren't familiar, Edgar's are Edgertronics high-speed cameras.
Yeah, so the lab's going to have all that technology. And then one thing that we talked about going into the new facility was like having a log or, build out like a database of all the pitches thrown in that lab, having like a pitch ID and all of the technologies attached to it for future like technology integrations, validations, like all those projects. Just building out a massive database of like all the pitches that were thrown with certain technologies on and those kind of.
Yeah, and super exciting. And I mean, these are things we've done before, but I think with our experience in terms of running so many validation processes at this point and just having a larger area, more technology, we have our bearings more around us about what it takes to validate a product.
Yeah.
We're like potentially really excited to kind of have everything happening at once. Like someone's throwing, maybe in mocap, Edger's going, throwing on Rapsodo, throwing on TrackMan, throwing a DK ball, throwing a pitch logic ball, potentially everything at the same time. Yeah. So that's going to be a lot of data and a lot of like very valuable backloaded data when it comes to validation going forward as well.
Also,
go ahead.
It's like a slight change of topic. So if you're still talking about tech,
bro, if you're gonna slide change the topic, you got to come in harder, dog. You got to cut me off harder.
I think a lot of it came about from or at least like my mind, just doing a lot of the partnership and tech integration work with various companies and stuff. It has made me realize more like the value in being able to piece them all together. Having multiple run at the same time, finding where like signal. I mean, a lot of that has been with like the pitch AI work from like stuff we've been doing in Arizona, getting the paired motion capture and video files. So I'm excited for it.
And one of the things I was going to mention too is we've had a really good success working with very friendly R&D teams of other technologies where they might have an old iteration of a certain pitch tracking model, hit tracking model, but we collected that data years ago, say, or months ago, and then once we get it in and kind of have that backload of data, we can update, we can kind of iterate on that and have those unique pitches or swings updated with a new physics engine. So essentially, like, even if they do keep improving their model, we'll be able to update our own models. And we've had like some success with that. I don't know if every single technology is going to be as collaborative, but it's really exciting, like kind of being able to reuse old data and validate newer processes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think big for CV, like all the CV initiatives and stuff. It's like as much data plus cameras.
Yo, you drop in Black Ops on
you're
podcasts like that, dog?
I mean, you're the one that just gave it away as Black Ops. But as far as everyone knows, CV initiatives like, pitch AI.
Cover letter.
Mocap.
Oh, no.
Now,
that's CV.
For some reason, I mean, you're the one that just gave it away.
Curricula vitae or something. The resume thing. I was gonna say we also are gonna have
away from it really well.
We're also gonna have the potential to do some really cool new motion capture stuff that we haven't previously, or we have been able to do in the past, but this will like improve on it. So we're hoping to have a more permanent or a better setup for hitting motion capture, so we can do that in the lab as well. So not just force plates in the batter's boxes, but we'll be able to get motion capture of that as well against live hitting instead of just off the tee, which is what we've been able to do previously. And then we also have
until last weekend.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wait, you guys did
not off a tee. So
let's go. And then the high performance lab. So in the weight room, at the end of the weight room, we have one squat rack that has a full like metal truss all the way around it with force plates installed in the middle. So we can do a bunch of things with that, including isometric mid-thigh pulls, which probably won't be with motion capture, but we'll be able to get motion capture cameras installed on the truss around it. And then we can do like motion capture lifts better because we're going to have a bench and a rack there. We'll be able to do a bunch of jumps. That's going to be their place for doing the jump assessments and everything. So just having everything more like permanent and more like solid setup is going to be really helpful. And then hopefully we can start to automate more and more of that.
You think you'll be able to use the force plates to see why you're so much worse than me at squatting?
Probably not, but I could use it to show you why I'm better than you at throwing. What?
Ooh, boom. Tied 1-1. 1 point Lindley, 1 point Caravan.
Yeah, you just got to hit me with one more lame flame, and then you can take this one.
That's 1 point for me. I didn't say anything.
That's 2 points.
A lame flame?
Lindley.
For saying a lame flame?
Yeah, lame flame.
That's
good,
right,
man.
baby. That's a good joke.
Dude, I had a couple lame flames going on your balcony yesterday.
We were talking about fireworks. It was the 4th of July. Everybody.
Yo, how late were you up? Like, how late were the fireworks around your? Or like, how late did you hear them?
Maybe I didn't hear them at all on my balcony because I was so far away. But it was like 10 o'clock when I was watching them from the very.
Did you go to sleep at 10 o'clock, or did you not hear them after 10 o'clock?
I stopped watching them after 10 o'clock. I went downstairs.
But I'm saying, you could still hear them.
I couldn't hear them ever.
Really?
Point. Yeah, I mean, my neighbors, or not my neighbors, but the apartments near me were.
Oh, dude, it was bumping. It was bumping over here,
dude. Anthony, somebody's lit their apartment on fire right next to our town.
Caravan said there was a fire near your house.
So crazy. They were. Devin looked it up and he said the report said it was over $100,000 of damage.
Jesus. You know if it was firework related or just like normal?
They said it was firework related. It lit the shrubs on fire, and the shrubs lit the balcony on fire.
It was crazy, dude. And the firemen came, put the water out, and then they just started looting the place. Plain sight, dude. They were just tossing everything out of the apartment, saying, "Yo, I think this blender still works." Just tossing it to a fireman. Just putting his
California jacket. Avenue was shut down for like 2 hours.
Jesus.
Yeah.
But
anything else on tech integrations?
No, I mean that's the main new thing with the new facility. I want to get in there so bad.
You just have to quarantine until Friday?
Yeah, I think until Friday to be safe, just to make sure I'm symptom free and everything. So probably best to do that.
Oh, I found a bunch of wipes, alcohol swabs.
Oh, nice. Good. Yeah.
Yeah. For our viewers, we're going extra sanitary
Abundance
these
of caution.
next couple months.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of alcohol wipes.
Is the facility is it cold? I remember when I was in there, it was like pretty cold. It was never like too hot.
I think it's going to get pretty warm. It wasn't
Really?
cold today. It wasn't hot, but there was also nobody in there.
Might be
But
tough.
we're going to have all the bay doors open, so it might be okay if we keep the air flowing.
Dang, yeah. Yeah, do you have a fan? Or is there like a fan setup? Oh, dude, you're going to want a fan. You're going to want a fan. We got to find a fan.
Oh, for mocap. Yeah, that's a good idea. There are fans. There are fans in the facility.
At the house if you need.
Yeah, I'm going to have to stop and get the license key anyway. So
Okay.
I think there might be some laying around in the office though that I can grab. Just like one of those square box fans.
Nice. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All
Want
right.
to talk about pelvises?
Yeah.
I mean, if you keep it PG, dude, I know how you get off camera.
All right. Lead
Especially
leg,
when pelvises come up.
pelvis, and hip extension. This is an insane title, Lindley. This is gonna like if we could probably just tweet it out actually on Monday saying like in this podcast
Lindley unlocks pelvis game.
I mean, I feel like if we just said like pelvis talks for pitching mechanics, everyone on pitching Twitter, I feel like would.
The extension poll kind of was pretty popular, Joe. I wouldn't be surprised.
But yeah, so run us through the initial
lower half
request.
stuff is just bumping.
So
originally, request, how you approached it.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of sparked because of the second SPM blog that we've been talking about the last couple.
Oh wait. Oh dude, did we ever get your edits from that, Brady?
I put a couple things in there, but I don't think I got a chance to send the full ones because Arizona got shut down.
Yeah. Hopefully we can. Let's try to do that this week. Yeah. But anyways, it was a significant result, but ended up not being after we took out some outliers. The back hip extension was related to higher velocity in the shorter cohort. So I was talking to one of the trainers about that, and they brought up how does hip extension affect the ability to, or does the pelvis need to be open to have a good block, or are those related? And then does that back hip extension negatively affect how athletes rotate their pelvis? So basically, I just compared lead leg block performance metrics, which are just knee extension velocity at a few various points at maximum, at foot plant, and at ball release, and then looked at a correlation between that and pelvis angle at foot plant. So if how open was their pelvis at foot plant, to see if that was related, and it was at foot plant, or it was related to all of them pretty weakly. But then I bend them by 1 standard deviation below the mean pelvis angle and 1 standard deviation above the mean pelvis angle. So
and by the way, I'll pop in and say this is fire kind of foreshadowing for my Cara Chat later, but I keep going.
Let's go. Can't wait to hear, dude. So people with really open pelvis at foot plant, and then people with a lot more closed pelvis at foot plant, and then we found that at foot plant, or there was a significant difference between those two groups of mean knee extension velocity at foot plant. But not at maximum and not at ball release. Though there was a slight negative trend. So basically at foot plant, those who had a more open pelvis had on average 80 degree per second faster leading extension. So basically they were just blocking earlier than the more closed pelvis group, which is something
that it was cut off at 54 and 26, it looks like.
Yes. Yeah. So people with 56 degrees of pelvis angle, which is like it's more than halfway open to the home plate, and then people who are much less than half open. So, and then I did a comparison of those same two groups with but throughout the full signal, and found that there was a lot of significance, or there was a lot of significant difference at different nodes, basically time points in that between those two groups. And on average, the more open pelvis had had a faster lead knee extension throughout the entire window that we analyzed. So
yeah, this is very, very similar to the findings in the original SPM blog.
Yeah.
Also, just
but
I want to say this is also just backs up like way earlier stuff that Caravan and I looked at like a long time ago, and starting the whole like impulse, pelvis, angle, blocking discussion.
I wasn't sure if you guys had actually done this exact comparison, because I know that we had kind of inferred that having an open pelvis makes it easier to block, or you get a better block if you have an open pelvis. But I wasn't sure if we had, or I wasn't aware of any like direct analysis between the two variables. So that's why I wanted to go through this. And Stephen, shout out Stephen Hart, was really interested. And then he was also, the second part of it was, if pelvis angle is important in blocking, there's kind of a stigma that maybe back hip extension might, too much like extension, if the back hip might decrease somebody's ability to open up their pelvis as efficiently or move their pelvis as efficiently. So I did a similar analysis.
Like they're leaping down the mound or something?
Yeah, similar, like basically that idea.
Gotcha.
And then I did a similar bend analysis between the people who have a really high max back hip extension and really low max back hip extension, and found that there was no difference in the full signal, and there was also no significant difference in group means between the two groups. So those who
how many bends were there?
Just two. I just did.
Okay.
Yeah. So those were basically the findings, and then it's like more or less backs up what was in the second SPM blog as well. So that was pretty interesting. And it's like, it can open the discussion up to more, because I think that there might be some debate on the role of back hip extension in the throw. So if it doesn't adversely affect pelvis angle, then maybe a different conversation can be had about that. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I really like, I just get super domed up about what we're going to see when we have force plates.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very important little caveat that we should let everyone know, that like we're quantifying lead leg block by lead knee extension angular velocity, because that's the best thing that we can do right now, because we don't have force plates in our data set.
And I put that in my tweet thread. Like one of the tweets was like, the main limitation to this first pelvis rotation lead leg thing is that we're not actually measuring ground reaction forces.
100%. It's very possible that you could block or create a high anterior posterior ground reaction force from a closed pelvis, or you could do that without having like a large lead knee extension angular velocity.
Yeah.
Like that's very possible. But from like a just raw kinematics perspective, with pelvis angles and lead knee extension angular velo, there is something there. It's just going to be tough until we have that force plate data to know if that like anterior posterior GRF increase decrease is there.
Yeah. So it's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
But and I'll pop in to say I was looking through your write-up, Lindley, and I was impressed about the used double equality sign for open pelvis equals good. The double, that really drives it home for the more programming savvy readers. And the fire Twitter plug for your own, like Twitter for our own employees,
dude. Listen. This is my theory on that. For the interns who, like, I'm assuming that a lot of these write-ups are going to be hopefully used for training documentation or like resources for new employees. And hey, maybe they're new, they don't know me, and they need to follow me, or else I'm going to lose the Caravan and the Twitter bet. So
how do you feel about your handle?
Also get some background noise here in a sec.
What's?
I was saying, how do you feel about your handle? Because you're kind of committing to that.
I struggled too hard with my handle, trying to come up with catchy like sports science type things, but I was just like, nah, I'd rather just do Kyle Lindley with some character and be chill with it. So I'm just gonna stick to it.
Yeah, but you know that strategy is gonna get you. It's gonna be too late. Realize that, right?
Yeah, you never know. You could stall. You were just talking about how hard it gets when you're in quadruple digits, dude. Maybe you're getting overconfident now.
Names than me.
What's up?
Oh yeah, baseball.
You guys are way better off with your Twitter names than I am. It's too late for me to, I think, change mine.
I don't know.
I don't know though.
Pretty
I think
popular.
it's iconic, dude. Because you made 2 Twitter accounts since you made Baseball Freak 9 and you made Hockey Freak 9. So that's
not true. That's not true.
What do you mean? What's
Let's be very clear for all the listeners.
Baseball
Hockey
Freak 9
is not a Twitter account run by me. I have no affiliation to that.
It's weird. It has your name.
No affiliation, dude.
0.
Dude,
not even bunk affiliation.
I mean, you gotta submit an identity theft or something because I swear that Twitter account says Anthony Brady MS CSCS. So if that's not you, dude, someone's trying to pretend to be you. So you definitely need to look. Listen, actually, I'll help you, dude. I'm down to dox that person for sure.
Hey, Anthony,
let's dox him. Let's dox him.
I just got a follower. Speaking of, Anthony, this is your perfect opportunity to leverage this into verification on Twitter if you're into that. Be like, this person is trying to copy me, and you can get verified on Twitter.
That's a good point. Yeah,
and you have enough followers for it anyways. You don't need more followers than that. So.
Hey, you're welcome.
Quest for the blue check.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. So you admit it. You admit that it's you.
No. I was saying
live on the podcast. Caravan admits that he's Hockey Freak.
No. I was saying you're welcome from Lindley. I was saying for Lindley's benefit.
It was my idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So everyone out there, make sure to follow Kyle Lindley _ on Twitter.
Let's go, baby.
More investigations on lead leg, pelvis, and hip extension. And if you're gonna follow
and music recommendations,
account, I guess follow Hockey Freak.
Yeah. And by the way, Lindley,
I have no other accounts to plug.
Lindley's spelled LEENDLEEIEY. So just keep that in mind. Kyle LE.
It's funny because the viewers can just see our handles.
Yeah, so
I can easily edit that after.
Yeah. Don't forget the triple underscore at the end.
Triple underscore.
Yeah.
All right. Cara Chat. Metric mobilization.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, so I guess in general
metric normalization.
One more time, but like more breathing into the mic.
I said metric mobilization. You didn't hear me.
Oh, really?
What's that whispering thing called?
ASMR.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's pretty good. Do you guys want to do a quick check on ASMR and see who has the best one?
No, it's probably going to be me because my mic is recorded raw.
Wait, try real quick. Try yours real quick.
Metric normalization.
No, I'll go.
Cara Chat.
Oh, wow. That's not
normalization.
bad.
Yo, between me and Brady, who is it?
I couldn't hear what you were saying. If you were, I need you to articulate more.
Okay.
Cara Chat with metric normalization.
That's very good. I honestly.
Hey, listen. If you like this, subscribe. Personal account
me.
on a DM me if you want to know where you can get more of this.
I don't know how I feel about this anymore.
I think Caravan, I got more like lip smacking, so it was kind of fire. But then Anthony's was just more like clear. It sounded better. So I don't know. It's like pretty even to me.
All right, you hop in there. And
No.
Yep.
Just give us a little
self-conscious. I'm too self-conscious. I'll practice and I'll do it next time.
Say that same phrase, but like whisper it in the mic.
I'm too self-conscious.
That's like there's a niche out there for you. I think
there's potential in my ASMR.
Not as self-conscious as me, baby.
Ooh, yeah, it's just I think it's. I don't know if it's.
There's something about. I'm also. You guys are using the same mic and I'm not, so maybe I'm handicapped by the mic.
Anyways.
Cara Chat, metric normalization.
We have to put a timestamp in the YouTube description for this the time that we do ASMR.
We drop an ASMR overlay.
ASMR chats.
I'm for sure using this to promote it on Twitter. I'm clipping the ASMR.
Everyone is just like, oh my God, just get to the metric normalization.
Dude, this is what happened last time. This is what happened last time on the analytics project ideas.
Oh yeah, everybody's getting their pens and pencils.
And luckily, I mean, I won't drop the name now on the potty, but we have some interested, at least one interested listener who's definitely like looking into it and DM me about it. So I'm pretty excited about that. At least one person made it through the very long intro.
I wasn't laughing at that statement. I was laughing that you so casually called it the potty. I know we call it the potty offline, but hearing it on the podcast just like it's kind of funny.
What's up, dog? Potty.
Is that,
Episode 21.
is that like a
We're
normal,
just sitting on the
term?
potty.
That's a
I
normal
mean,
thing?
potty like if you're using the potty.
Like, has Joe Rogan ever referred to his as the potty?
God, no, I don't think so. I've never heard it.
Is that like an us thing?
I think it might be a Driveline R&D original.
Yeah, the Driveline R&D potty.
I mean, that's a little cocky. I mean, the only thing I'll say, by the way, is the last thing I'll say before moving on to this rant or chat is if you're done talking about potty, low key for any listeners that aren't aware, Lindley has a nice bathroom setup. He's got that like raised seat.
The squatty potty.
Yeah,
Steven just got a squatty potty.
Yeah, it's nice. That's all I'm gonna say.
I haven't used it. I still haven't used it.
You haven't used it?
No, dude. I'm too scared. I know, but I'm too scared
of what, dude?
I don't know, dude.
It's not
scared
gonna
of
eat you. Dude, it's not going to eat you. It's fine if you're not going to fall in.
Lindley was the same way in Japan. We were there for 2 weeks, didn't use the bathroom.
I was really scared to use the bidet. That is 100% true. But I was very glad that I did it. 2 weeks
in Japan, never went to the bathroom one time. Craziest thing I've ever seen.
That's actually insane. Well, I mean,
but I'm going to try it now. I'm going to try it now because the bidet story just definitely convinced me.
Dude, just take the second half of the podcast on the squatty potty.
I'll do the potty on the potty.
You got the virtual background anyways.
Ooh, yeah, potty on the squatty potty.
Okay.
This is a top 10 derailing of the potty.
Okay, yeah, top 2.
Yeah, this might be number 1.
Anyways, so Cara Chat, metric normalization. One thing that maybe not everyone is as aware of, or depending on how much experience you have with running models or just overall machine learning. But a key thing when you do have like the general concept of a predictive model or any sort of model is you get X features, like, you get variables that you use to predict something else or used to accurately represent something else. So kind of I'll take a step back and say 2 general types of models are classification and regression. So classification would be someone builds a model to predict what pitch type it is. They have all these variables coming in, and then the output is changeup, fastball, slider, whatever. That's a classification. It's usually a non-continuous selection, right? Because you're not going to have like half changeup, half fastball. The model's got to predict one of X amount of pitch types. And obviously, the number of pitch types you want to predict can be a constraint on the model, that kind of stuff. Regression is more continuous. So, easy example, predicting pitch velo, you can predict it to be 90.1, 90.11, 90.111, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But in all those cases, there's multiple variables coming in that are used to predict the output, the Y variable. So the input variables are the X variables, and they have their own, they have their own coefficients, or it all depends on what kind of like model you're building, or what kind of like type of model. It could be linear regression, logistic regression, all that kind of stuff. And I won't go too nitty gritty on that kind of stuff, but just like a little bit of background on what I'm talking about. For a lot of cases, you have to normalize the variables to get your top sort of accuracy. So what I mean by normalizing, and normalizing is a term that a lot of people in the industry might like kind of scoff at because it's like too vague, right? People will say normalize, they'll say scale, they'll say standardize, and all those things kind of mean different things. And all those things like should be used in different situations. So usually scale kind of refers to the range of all the values. So they might set everything from 0 to 1. Say you're doing a pitch velo model and your lowest velo is 70 and your highest velo is 100. And maybe you want to scale everything from 0 to 1. So 0, the 70 velo is actually 0. 100 is 1, and then 85 is 0.5. Something like that. It doesn't change the shape of the distribution. So if 70 is an outlier, if the second highest velo is, or second lowest velo is 84, then that's probably not the way you want to do it. But that's like a way to kind of put everything on the same range. Standardized usually means you want to have everything centered around the mean, and the distribution is like taken into account because the standard deviation or the variance, depending on what kind of like standardization you're doing, is usually a unit of 1. So in my previous case, maybe our average velo is 90. Our standard deviation is 7. So, 90, pitch velo at 90 will be 0. A pitch velo at 97 will be 1. Pitch velo between 90 and 97 is between 0 and 1.
Yeah.
Pitch velo a little bit lower than 90 will be, under or a negative value.
Yeah, I want to say my first introduction to normalization from like an applied perspective was with EMG signal and using a reference. Like you set up like a reference EMG signal, and then you normalize like everything else recorded after that to that, so that you can compare across like populations. So you have like a common signal to compare with. Yeah,
and that's normalization is extremely important in that case. Like to the point where almost like nothing useful would happen out of an EMG signal if you didn't normalize it.
Right. You definitely couldn't like compare between people.
Right. But the thing is, like, that's like an obvious example, but maybe like something like a lot of people don't really, keep in mind is normalization is like important for almost all examples. It shouldn't be limited to just something like that. It should be limited to anything. Go ahead.
Only for between subject stuff, or within subjects comparisons and analysis as well.
Either or. A lot of times, like when you're building a model, and especially if you're worried about like there being outliers on either range, like normalization is very, very important. And it's kind of a feature. It's almost like a hack. Like you kind of want to build a model initially off like some intuition. You test out some hypotheses. You see what makes sense. But like once you normalize the variables and then have that, like you normalize the output as well, have everything on the same scale, that'll give you a much more accurate representation of how accurate a model really is. Because if you build it off a data set that might have an outlier or two, or might have an uneven distribution, then the moment you incorporate different types of data, that'll just have way worse results than what you're expecting. So in this case, I kind of dropped a few ways to do it. And a lot of times for stuff like this, especially if you're like kind of getting into coding or whatever, or kind of like don't want to go through all the math yourself, there's a ton of built-in functions. I'm kind of looking now, and I'm going to link this as well in the description. I think there's a really good article that I was using for Python specifically. It's a scikit-learn model, and if it means nothing to you, then definitely check out the piece. But it goes through a few built-in functions that do exactly what I said. So one of the first ones is the min-max scaler, which again I was telling you at the range. It subtracts the minimum value in that variable and like that range of that range of data for that feature, and then divides by the range. So the range is the difference between the original maximum and minimum. Kind of the example I was telling you between 70 and 100. Doesn't reduce the importance of outliers. So if you do have outliers, this won't like accurately scale everything, or it might scale everything, but it won't accurately standardize everything. But it does preserve the initial like shape. It doesn't like kind of like shift values around. Then we have the robust scaler, which I actually think is pretty cool, and I've never used this myself. Like I said, I stumbled on this article a couple of days ago when I was just like looking for a reference myself on one of the functions, and I think it's a kind of in-between feature. But it changes that X variable by subtracting the median and then dividing by the inner quartile range, which is the 75th percentile value minus 25th percentile value. So go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I'm saying
answer my question.
So I'm saying in this case, when there are outliers or where there are like, large values that kind of hang outside the normal bounds of the data, this would kind of reshift everything. It's not based on the mean. It's based on the median instead. It's based on inner quartile range. So if things are like really, really clumped outside of it, it'll give you a better idea of just how clumped they are, right? Because most of the data should be in that 25th to 75th percentile. So dividing by that puts it on that scale. And then if you have like, if all the values above the 75th percentile are wildly out of there, you'll really be able to tell.
Picture a box and whisker plot. If any of you guys are familiar, it's like everything within the box would be considered the normalized range.
Good example.
Yeah, that's good. And really easy to visualize too. We can maybe throw like a picture or something on the overlay or something. And then like the more common method is the kind of standardization scale that I told you about, where the mean is going to be 0. And then, like a standard deviation, 60% of the variance is going to be, or 60% of the values are going to be between -1 and 1. because you do have that whole distribution is like reshaped to proportionally fit, most of it between 1 and -1, 2 and -2. And this accounts a ton for outliers because everything's put on that kind of condensed scale, and you can really tell what values are really out there.
Yeah.
It does like distort like the relative distances between the actual values because, if 90 and 70 is a big range, but the variance is really high, then that can get shifted. But like it's a really good example, I think, of once you have a little bit of experience, mess around with your own data set or running analyses, running regressions, running models, you can kind of really see the impact once you implement some some standardization, some scaling. A lot of times, this is really helpful specifically especially if you have a regression you're trying to run and you have a relatively small sample size and you're not sure how psycho the distribution is, for lack of a more scientific term. The very common descriptor of psycho that applies to a lot of data science. So yeah, those are kind of like the main ones. The min-max scaler won't distort the feature. You can use a robust one if you have outliers and want to reduce that influence. You can also remove outliers as a
pre-filter it before the normalization.
Yeah. And then there's without getting too deep in it, there's different types of normalization. There's L2, L1, where you kind of have like a unit variance. You can get pretty deep into it, but what's up? The biggest thing to take away is when you do run a model, the assumption you shouldn't have the assumption that each of the feature variables or X variables have the same sort of relationship, in their distribution, and you should keep in mind to either apply some sort of scale or apply some sort of standardization. And honestly, if you have a robust data set and aren't sure like what works or what doesn't work, just try it and then plot something like the errors. Like that's almost like the second level of error analysis. You plot the errors that show up from the model. Are those normally distributed? Would those benefit from a normalization? All that kind of stuff. So just like food for thought when people, especially people that don't have too much experience, kind of mess around with stuff. Try standardizing it. See how it looks.
Yeah.
That's
Cara Chat.
One other
Magic normalization.
I have one question kind of on that topic, and then sorry, Anthony, I think I may have talked.
My mouth got so dry with the Cara Chat. I feel like I didn't do ASMR.
It's probably going to be it'll probably be a better ASMR, honestly. My first is that like with the first normalization, you're normalizing between 0 and 1. To make that between like, for example, like the scouting like grade going 20 to 80, right? So you can just like multiply the 0 to 1 by a scalar or whatever to do what like change that. Is that how that's usually done for like our Arsenal score is based on that, right? Like 100 is like some.
Yeah. For scouting scale specifically, the mean should be 50 and 10 is a standard deviation. That's why it's kind of set up where 80 is 3 SDs above, 20 is 3 SDs below. So that's essentially a qualitative normalization process with the scouting scale.
Okay. Sure. And then I had one other question. It's kind of a personal thing. What's the difference between logistical regression and what's the other? What was is the other one just predictive regression? I was asked that question. Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Do you mean regression classification?
Shoot, I'm not. It might be the classification thing. I was just asked that on a questionnaire once, like an application, and completely boofed that one.
Logistic regression is usually used to classify things that are binary. So you kind of put them on a log scale, so they're either 1 or 0.
Okay.
So you can use them for. Ideally, the easiest way to use it is a classification where it's either 0 or 1. There's 2 classes, but you can use logistic regression when there's multiple classes. You just have to like kind of apply like maybe it's within that like 0.75 to 0.85 range, or use it to split between like 2 similar classes. You can definitely get creative with it, but that's like the easiest way to use logistic regression is just having a classification between 2 possible values, and then you use a log scale, and then you round it. If it's closer to 1, then you put in that class. If it's closer to 0, you put in that class, because most of the values will be very highly clumped towards 1 or towards 0 if the data like benefits from a logistic regression.
Gotcha.
All right, get your beak wet for that study though, so you can hit the same SAMR going in and out.
No, can't do it. No more ASMR for your boy.
All right. Journal article review of the week.
Of the 3 weeks, honestly, at this pace. We'll be back.
Yeah, you said you have three. You have three lined up, right?
Yeah.
Last segment on the potty.
I am going to share my screen now.
Last segment on the potty before the squatty potty.
That's true. That is true. Can you see?
You eat a lot of dairy, Lindley, or what?
I did have some ice cream.
Yo, why is this so long, dog?
Man, dude.
What's this aspect ratio?
Man, dude. Is this a vertical monitor? Is this what you're reading this on?
Yeah. Hold on.
Dude, showing everyone your IPython notebook folders?
Whoa.
That's way too personal.
Back in the overlay. Oh, and now we're back.
All right, we're back, baby.
Man, okay, now we're talking.
That was kind of a whirlwind for the driver there. I'm not gonna lie. I was zooming around in OBS.
It's because you're the driver, but I'm the backseat driver.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really new, dude. Accepted 20. Oh, never mind. I thought for a second. I said 2020. I thought it just been accepted 2 weeks ago.
No. Oh, this is another note for peer-reviewed research. This is a nightmare here.
Oh yeah.
They received it in middle of November, and didn't get it.
It's not even that bad. I think it's comparable. I think it's comparable to our 6th week.
Yeah, for sure. But it's just that's a good example of the struggles. Anyways, this is
real quick. Keep it on here. Just say quick shout out. Ben Fleisig, John Slowick. ABBS got announced last week and officially a society. So American Baseball Biomechanics Society.
And
to be a part of it.
Brady's being a little bit humble here. He's actually the president of it.
No, I'm not. Glenn Fleisig is the president. Very excited to work with him and be on the board for the society. So.
All right. Shout out Abs.
Yes.
Shout out Colorado Abs.
Motivating me. Yeah. All right. This study is it's published in Sports Biomechanics. It's called The Relationship Between Variability in Baseball Pitching Kinematics and Consistently in Pitch Location. So kind of authors. First author is Joshua A. Glanzer. This is out of ASMI. And
I think that's Paul Glazer's pen name.
Yeah. So this study kind of looks at some command, or hopefully is trying to unpack some of the things that affect command, which is something that's less, I think, studied than velocity and the biomechanical parameters that affect pitch velocity. So this is pretty interesting and it's pretty new. And it's also, I wanted to talk about this because this is something that we're hoping to, Bill Hiesel has been hitting me up with some command questions, kind of along these same lines, looking at variability and pitching biomechanical metrics that we track.
By the way, this is really cool. I've never seen this study before. When did you find it, Lindley?
I think it was posted in the campfire just recently.
Oh, it was?
I want to say.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Honestly, maybe I have it open as one of my mini links. But yeah. As you were.
Yeah.
No, this one's really cool. Yeah, I remember seeing it as well.
Really quick though, Caravan, who wants to do the over under? What do you think the longest tab that has been open is on your computer?
Oof.
Or do they get cleared when you shut your computer down a lot?
I mean, when I restart it, I just reopen my closed windows.
Okay, so yeah, when do you think the late or the earliest one was opened?
Oh, I mean, since whenever I got this laptop, I've never fully closed all my windows and restarted. I always have
so impressive.
I always have email, Slack, Basecamp, open at the very least. There's no reason to ever permanently shut those down. And I have other tabs open besides that. Those will obviously change way more. But yeah, I mean, I've so over a year.
That's crazy. That's wild. Do you use the? Okay, yeah, never mind. All right, so basically, the premise of this study was they used around 50, or they tried to get around. It looks like they tried to get around 50 pitchers, doing 10. I think it was 8 to 10 maximum maximal
effort is
intent
said, yeah.
pitches. And the command and their mechanics were measured by motion analysis, motion capture. Two youth athletes, 28 high school athletes, and 14 college athletes. Oh, and 3 professional pitchers. So and 33 were right-handed, 14 were left-handed. So not even, but I think that's pretty typical.
That's a really good ratio.
Yeah,
that's a really good ratio, I think.
Yeah. I think we have some data sets that are like two lefties and 28 righties or something. But so 8 or 10 full effort fastballs during the ASMI's regular assessment, which is part of like a point of contention for this, I think, because I don't know what their cues were, like what their goals are during that evaluation protocol. But then the pitch location was measured by Pitch FX. So there's cameras that can measure where the pitch goes. So basically, they looked at these pitches over the 10 pitches. They calculated variability in the pitching mechanic or whatever metric it was by just calculating the standard deviation of each of the metrics over the 10 pitches. And then compared that, or they did a regression analysis between that and the pitch location consistency, which they say was how much each of maybe they did a sum. Honestly, this was going to be a question for you. They did a distances from each individual pitch to the mean location were found from each pitcher and tested. And that's just a standard deviation, isn't it?
No, I mean, it's not squared.
Is it? Oh, I thought variance was squared.
No, it's like they'd be for each data point, they'd be squared, then summed up at the end. Then the square root of that would be the standard deviation, and if you don't take the square root, that'd be the variance.
Okay.
But like the actual each data point would have actually this goes into like L1 norms and L2 norms, like whether or not you square the distances between each data point. But yeah, continue. Yeah.
Okay. So the distance from each individual pitch from the mean location was found. I don't know if it was an average. Maybe they talk about it in the data analysis here. But basically, how far each of the pitches were changing from the mean was how they defined pitch consistency. So they did a regression model, and then they did reverse elimination. So basically, they eliminated factors that didn't have a p-value. What was it? Was it
below 1? Below 0.01. Looks like.
Yeah. So, and then they repeated that once they got rid of those that were above 0.1, then they waited until all of the remaining metrics were below 1 or 0.1. So, and that ended up being 5 metrics that we have also found to be pretty significant in a lot of the different comparisons we made. One is upper trunk tilt at foot plant. One is shoulder abduction at foot plant. So how high the elbow is, basically, how elevated the elbow is compared to the shoulder line. Shoulder horizontal abduction, so at foot plant, so kind of how scap retracted, how far the elbow is behind, kind of loaded behind the pitcher's torso. And then the other 2 metrics were shoulder external rotation, and then maximum shoulder horizontal adduction. So
adduction?
Yeah, that's interesting. I thought it was abduction, but so I guess how low, the lowest point of the elbow, basically.
Well, if it's shoulder horizontal adduction would be in front, right?
Oh, horizontal. Sorry. Yeah. And then so basically these 5 metrics together accounted for, so the R squared was 58% or 0.58. So it described 58% of the variance in the consistency metric of the fastballs. So they basically just talk about how this is they describe some of the coefficients here of the model. And then looking at these standard
deviations. Can you go
deviations,
back up to that image just to make sure? Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So max horizontal adduction is the point where the arm is most out front of the torso.
Being trunk tilt is
I think it's lateral.
Interesting. Being it's lateral, what would that be? ZYX or XYZ?
Ooh, yeah, I'm not sure. They might describe. I've noticed a lot of ASMI studies cite previous studies that describe how the metrics were calculated. So we could probably go back a bunch.
ZYX, I want to say.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's what we changed ours to, right? Because they were XYZ before.
So if that's the case, then yeah, and especially if they're looking at foot plan, it would be lateral tilt.
Yeah, and it was significant.
What was the initial number of?
That would make sense too with shoulder abduction.
I think it was 20.
Initial number of variables.
20 total parameters. So they basically eliminated 15 of them. And I was gonna note here as well. So pitch location consistency, they said was 38 centimeters, which I don't have a reference for, but I was looking at these.
What is that?
Standard deviation.
On average, they missed by 38 centimeters.
Each pitch was 38 centimeters away from the mean on average, I assume. Yeah. And then, an average plus or minus the standard deviation. But the thing I was going to note here was that these standard deviations of pitch metrics are very close to what we found. I did an internal study. I mentioned on the podcast a couple weeks ago, I think, or a few weeks ago. And found that on average, or the median standard deviation of more of the important biomechanical metrics in our pitching assessment were right around 2 degrees, between 1.5 and 2 degrees, which is what they found as well. So that's interesting.
But theirs were more pitches per subject, right?
Yeah.
Do you mind scrolling back to the backwards elimination procedure? I wanted to double check because it says, okay, right there. So just scroll a little bit so I have the statistical analysis and the results on the same page. Right there. That's good. So they're actually, so it's kind of interesting. Okay, so first off, I haven't read this paper. I'm very interested in reading it. The thing that kind of jumps out to me, and again, this is just like my initial gut instinct. I don't see a lot of stepwise linear regression with backwards elimination too often. And I think that's because it gets some criticism about potentially overfitting. And they clearly try to mitigate this by knocking off p-values that were above 0.1. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm reading this for the first time. I don't want to say like I disagree with this or not. But I think generally, and I just checked it, usually like the industry level kind of criterion for this is going to be lower to mitigate, like I said, the overfitting. I think it's usually, the reason I asked the number of predictors, I think it's usually the square root of 2 times the log of the predictors. I'm looking this up now as well, and I was like, that's what I was asking.
That sets the p-value that you use?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't have too much experience with this, so I don't want to like come in hot, but I definitely am pretty interested, and I think my gut instinct is that p-values of 0.1 is too generous. What's up?
Too high, so it need to be like lower, like 0.05, 0.03.
Oh no, yeah, maybe. I mean, I just did math right here on a calculator. Square root of 2 times log of 20, it comes out of 1.6. Just from like personal experience, I know 1.65 is usually cut off for a p-value of 0.05 if you're doing a one-way test. And which seems like they're doing that on the one-way test, right or not? I don't know. But anyways, very interesting.
Does 0.1 make sense if it's a two-way test?
Maybe, but I don't know why it'd be a two-way test.
You could have variability in either direction mechanically.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, so I guess all I'm saying really is that I find this methodology pretty interesting. Definitely want to read it a little bit more because I don't think it's like a very common methodology, or at least nowadays not a very common methodology. And the other thing is, if it is a very robust procedure, then the results are pretty impressive. R squared of 0.58. I'll add that adjusted R squared, for anybody not familiar, means that each variable you add in, you kind of dock. Because anytime, if you're just building a regression, technically the more variables you bring in, your R squared will always either stay the same or get higher, because the more information. But so that's why most people use an adjusted R squared, because you have to penalize by the number of variables you bring in. You can't just like try to pick something with like 40 variables because you're going to overfit like a motherfucker. So you our podcast has a couple. You can drop cuss words in our podcast, I think.
No, it's not that. It's not that. It just was funny.
But yeah.
OF like an MF.
Yeah. So I'm definitely interested in looking more into this. But there are some. Go ahead.
It was gonna be off stats topic.
Damn, bro, you're trying to cut me off.
I thought you were done. I thought you were done.
I'll let you know if an ASMR drop when I'm done.
Okay. That one was too quiet, but I heard it. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know. Again, I mentioned it before about they say that they're using their typical evaluation protocol, but I'm not sure if that protocol, like, what is the goal? Like at here, Driveline, our assessments are try to throw it hard, try to throw it close to game speed. We're not queuing on command. So maybe you don't have to. Maybe this is a more natural and even more valid way of looking at it. But my first thought would be like, if we're going to do a command controlled experiment, like maybe have the guys try to improve their, or just focus on command, like try to throw the ball into one spot, and see if these results are the same.
By the way, which campfire does it get dropped in? Research?
Yeah, I want to say the research one at some point. I might have honestly just seen it on Twitter too.
Yeah, I think it may have just come from. I think it may have just come from when I was doing the lit review for the rocker study. I ran across a bunch of these. I ended up
across this. Did you include it?
No, I'm pretty sure I was just on FlySig's, I ran into FlySig's Google Scholar, and I was just looking through all of the studies he was listed on and saw this one that was interesting.
Yeah, sick. Do we have something? I know you said the whole this is really off topic or kind of off topic, but I know you said the whole Mandalay Bay thing, Lindley. But do we have
Mandalay
anything
Bay thing
for research with John Turkey, John Turkey's test? But
yeah.
Do we have anything? Do you have any like notification system set up for kind of new research published from a selection of curated authors? Because I think it'd be super valuable and something we could get going.
Yeah,
I'm always. I mean, like I said, I'm always tossing up tabs, but I just never get around to them. I'm just like fiercely trying to drop links on a spreadsheet or something.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I don't know the best way. I have notifications set up for the journal Biomechanics, but I don't have any other ones set up. So that's something that I can spend a little bit of time on this week. That's actually a really good idea. Figuring out how we can, like, for the whole department, setting up notifications for baseball studies in general, because I think the ones that get posted in Basecamp are ones that Bodie finds or Joe finds because Joe might have some notifications on, but I think like we get notified when people cite our studies. Yeah. So I think those are what a lot of those come from. But I think there's ways that we can probably set notifications and make sure to keep up with all of the latest research. So yeah.
Honestly, I'm pretty sure I get the majority of mine from Rob Gray. Like I'm nearly positive he tweeted this like last fall, and that's when I saw it.
And I don't know what does he just wait to do it after midnight? I feel like all these come like at like 12:30 a.m.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but
he's like the reverse of us. He's trying to get as little traffic as possible. Also, speaking of, I literally just saw your notification in Plus Slack. Did Dan end up replying to that?
Yeah, Dan got it.
Okay. Tight.
Yeah, so that's that. You guys have, I mean, we could talk about this discussion a little bit. This is kind of interesting. I have to look at these references. I didn't give myself enough time to look through all these, but they say they talk about how pitchers have shown to exhibit an increase in variability in pitching mechanics as they become fatigued, and they cite a study from 2007. So that'd be interesting. I'd like to look into that because I'm very interested in that specific topic, and I think that's something that's going to be really valuable about having in-game motion capture data between Simi, Kinetrax, and even Pitch AI. If we can get any of that information out of those, that would be awesome. Because I think that's as far as like just fatigue, like knowledge of fatigue in the industry, I think it's going to be very helpful. And then it like goes on by saying pitchers tend to be less consistent with pitch locations as they fatigue. So then they're using those two to relate to each other. Since they both happen when they fatigue, then they're related. And then the current study supports the link between these two.
Unless you're Robert Stock, and then your mechanics are variable every single time you throw a baseball.
Or me.
I was using that was for the
harder throwing group.
Variability in pitchers' kinematics decreases as they progress to higher competition levels. So
yeah, he's the outlier.
I mean, we'll see what happens when I get higher competition levels.
Yeah.
That's a big if.
This is the one. This is the one. He cites 2 studies for this, one in 2009, one in 2018. Not only does pitching with fatigue decrease effectiveness, but it also increases injury risk, which, like, yeah, that's intuitive. That makes sense. But I'd love to see the look at what they use to
pitch counts a workload.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So and then it talks about in the end here that variability in mechanics variability or consistency in pitch location is correlated with age, which age is tough for me. I don't typically like seeing that as a independent variable, just because it's like you're basically talking about level of play, right?
Survivorship bias as well, a lot, right? Like the people that are going to be older and playing, like they better have damn good command, because their reel is going to decrease with age.
Yeah. That's a really good point. So I think age is kind of a tough one. It's like maybe it's one of those metrics that people include because they're obligated to. Like, I've read some studies where it says something how, like, that you just have to report how ball velocity is significantly different when you're throwing a 12-ounce ball as opposed to a 5-ounce.
I was gonna say could be helpful. Maybe reduces collinearity, which is like one variable is used to explain another one, right? So like maybe, I mean, that'd be interesting as well. Was there any collinearity analysis in the study? Do you know?
I didn't read any. I didn't see any in the.
Honestly, I really want to look over the study and kind of maybe make a tweet thread after, get a couple of followers from that, pad my lead from Lindley. But I definitely have a few follow-up questions I kind of want to look into on the stat side of things and model selection. Mm-hmm. I mean, did you guys see anything about normalization? Because your boy just spent a couple minutes on that.
No.
I mean, because they took the mean of each pitcher's pitch locations, they're normalizing to their own as opposed to the center of the strike zone. I
was kind of kidding. I meant specifically for the input variables, but no. I don't know if kinematics is the best data set to really normalize too much on.
Yeah. Like, I'm also what's interesting about these is these maximum positions have less variability, which makes sense to me, because maybe a lot of, and we saw that as well when I did my initial kind of brief analysis in our data set, like maybe maximum positions like external rotation and shoulder horizontal adduction. Actually, shoulder horizontal adduction, maybe not so much as far as this goes, but maximum ER, like that might be a limitation of like tissue laxity and whatnot, whatever that may be, rather than the positions at foot plant. I feel like are probably not like getting as close to the end ranges of motion of the specific.
Wait, is that the very bottom one? Is that maximum shoulder horizontal adduction, or is it shoulder horizontal adduction at the instant of maximum external rotation?
Oh, that's a really good point.
Seems like the latter. Like at the instant of max ER, because otherwise, I'm not sure why
that wouldn't make sense for it to be a max at
a max. Yeah,
isn't that'd be just a discrete metric? Because I was also trying to think, like, I don't even know when max shoulder horizontal adduction would happen. Like the very end of the throw, like it'd be at like maximum internal rotation, like at the very end. I mean,
it makes sense to me. Like the closer to ball release, like the metrics, the positions of the arm, if they differ, kind of like release point consistency. Like if your release point is changing, then the pitch location is probably going to change. So it would make sense to me that maximum horizontal adduction would be related. But yeah, it kind of looks like this is at
Yeah,
MER.
I would just have trouble figuring out like where or when in the throw you define that.
Yeah.
Because if you cut it off at ball release, it's just going to be a ball release.
Yeah.
And then if you want to go further, it wouldn't matter. I feel like it's got to be shoulder horizontal adduction at MER. That would make the most sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Brady.
Definitely. That's a good point. And screen share.
You got to give me a heads up, man. I can't drive that fast.
Sorry, bro. We can cut that part out.
Overlay wasn't ready.
We got to cut enough parts out of this anyways.
Nah. One take, baby.
One take, gang.
All right. We got anything else?
Let's say, full disclosure, I had 2 beers. I'm halfway through my second one. These Lush IPAs are way too good.
They are, dude. I'm going to go dabble into a crikey, I think.
Oh, crikey.
Yeah, I say we have a podcast, Caravan. Throw me a crikey up the stairs.
Do you want to end on that?
Yeah.
I got nothing else. I was going
to say, and I'll rip a black tea and tequila after.
Shout out Dr. Mike's
facility opening. We will see you guys next week.